Hello there, YouTube crew. I'm the real Dill, and today we're going to skip right along to Ghost Protocol, the fourth Mission Impossible one, because I needed the motivation to keep doing this, so I needed to look at a good one instead of two. And also, it kind of works out because the fourth Mission Impossible is almost like a soft reboot for the franchise. Like, yes, the other movies after it continue the kind of like different style for each movie, but they are far less disjointed than the first three movies are from each other. In large part because of how well Ghost Protocol lands all the tropes and aesthetics of the franchise. Like it sets the standard, and the other movies follow that standard pretty well. Directorial style, tone. This movie hits the near pitch perfect action adventure feel with great escalating stakes. Probably has the greatest stakes of the franchise, and without losing the series' charm and fun. It feels like they set out to prove that Tom Cruise is still a viable star and that Mission was a worthwhile vehicle for him. And man, did they deliver. So, of course, 3 points. Mood. This movie won so many naysayers into the franchise. Even I myself had become a skeptic during the downtime from 3, but I'm a true believer now. This movie enraptures you. Every set piece is exciting, and every setback digs you in deeper. It's a true contender for the best Mission Impossible. +3. Score. Oh, yeah, it's a better score than 1. It's a better score than 2. 3 might be a contender against it. It is the same composer, Michael Giacchino, so you know he must have done a good job on 3 if he comes back on 4 and does a great job. So, 3 points. Title sequence. Right off the bat, the fuse in this is actually lit in the movie. Pretty awesome. I think the only time that's been done. However, the CG environments between real shots do not hold up well. Far too soft on detail, and I think the momentum is too slow, especially for this movie. Makes sense to start slow and build up, and it does have its moments, but not at the level it needs. But I do like the different effects on the main title and subtitle. But that laid back pacing and dated CG really holds it back. I would give it 1.5 points, but because of that real light of the fuse, I'll bump it up to 2. Cinematography. This movie utilizes IMAX cameras, and boy, do they maximize the grandness of that Burj Khalifa sequence. Incredible stuff. Brad Bird, coming from his animation background, really hammered out the set pieces and action super well with storyboards, and they're definitely the best in the series so far, at least counting 1 through 4. With one's vault scene being the only true contention this movie has. Gotta give 3 points. Additionally, I've got to note this moment where Ethan is coming back to from that explosion, and as he's gaining consciousness, he starts to interpret the Russian into English. Like, that's so good. I love when movies do that stuff with language. Character, Ethan Hunt. He's got some interesting stuff going on here. I think this is the first sequel to properly strike his legendary status and mentor type role with his continued field service. There's also a dark mystery about him and why he was actually imprisoned at the start. There's rumors of maybe a divorce with Julia, or maybe Julia was killed and then he performed an unsanctioned hit. And of course, he's got all the characteristics developed in one, except he's more coolly confident than cocky, definitely still caring, and most importantly, a true gambler. Also, his greatest hair in the franchise. Gotta give half a point extra. That makes it 3.5 points. Team. Best team so far out of the first 4 films. 1 is kind of a special circumstance, but 2 and 3 definitely fall short of this one. Sorry, Luther. Benji Dunn is upgraded to field agent and is still making small mistakes. And I love this hero worship he has of Ethan, mixed with genuine empathy and friendship. Jane Carter, hashtag bring back Paula Patton, hashtag BBPP, has a strong presence. She's motivated by revenge, which brings out good dynamics and folds to the action. William Brandt is supposedly an analyst, but has mad skills. He functions as both brains and conscience, but is conflicted by guilt. Stellar addition to the franchise. And honorary mention for Hanaway, rest in peace. He's cool and helps establish the stakes and drama. Gotta give 3 points. Boss. Tom Wilkinson's secretary might be my favorite boss, and that's despite having the least screen time of any of them. We get so much history from this guy in one scene with expert precision. Wilkinson gives so much gravitas and intention to him. I love, love, love when he lays out how things are supposed to go down, but swerves to give Ethan the unofficial green light to go rogue. And then he too is used to bolster the stakes of this movie. +3 points. Now to the antagonist. Kurt Hendricks, aka Cobalt, played by Michael Nyqvist, is surprisingly Ethan's most complete fully rounded threat so far. He's an excellent planner as well as a field operator. Dude even hijacks Ethan's Kremlin job to create a massive setback. He stays one step ahead all the way to the end, goes punch for punch with Tom, even sacrifices himself to complete his goal. But he simply could not account for Hunt's sheer willpower and determination. Wistrom is okay, but his big sequence turns out to be Hendrix in disguise, so he's whatever. Plus 3 points. Neutral characters. This movie probably has the most of them, and they're stacked. Bogdan is a likable doofus who first functions to remind us of Ethan's care and commitment. But he's also a gateway to his cousin the Fog, who's an arms dealer.
No, 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 Sergey. He's independent defense coordinator, right?
And very similar to Wilkinson's performance and role, his big scene is written and performed perfectly. He needs to be brought back too. Now to the more antagonistic forces. We've got Moreau, who's an assassin with a penchant for diamonds. She kills Hanaway, which creates a nemesis in Jane, but she's an asset for a connection to Cobalt as well as other information. Anatoly is a Russian agent tasked with making Ethan pay for the Kremlin bombing. He's tough, relentless, but he's fair. And he admits his mistakes and makes amends. Great dude, actually. Plus 4 points. Conflict. Just how impossible is it? Ethan and his team must stop a madman bent towards nuclear annihilation with limited resources and all disavowed. Cobalt has spent the last couple decades playing out these thought experiments as his job, and further uses his Swedish Special Forces training to outmaneuver the team at every step. The dude actually manages to launch the nuke and get it to the US. Pretty dire circumstances and impossible odds, plus 3 points. Stunts. Definitely at the point where we're gonna have to just do highlights. The Burj Khalifa climb and jump, followed by that sandstorm foot-to-car chase. Incredible stuff. Brant in the large computer room, bit of an homage to the original, but this time with a large fan and magnets.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets! Oh!
And can't forget the big fist fight ending with this brilliant nosedive. Plus 3.5 points. Set pieces. Man, this prison scene is peak vibes. There's friction between following the set out plan and doing what's right, without us yet knowing, alongside Benji, what Ethan is up to. Excellent staging and great song choice. Then there's the Burj Khalifa. It houses both this super high stakes meeting,
and you want to alter its infrastructure with the hopes of convincing two people that they've had a meeting which actually really never happened.
which, by the way, is very similar to how they'd operate in the original show, deception-wise. And of course, the iconic climb. And it acts as a transition point to probably the best chase of the first 4 films. And you can't forget the Billionaire's Palace. Man, it's cool to see Ethan just sit back and quarterback, letting his team do the heavy lifting.
Next time, I gotta seduce the rich guy.
We should see them do this approach again. And of course, the coolest car dealership in the world hosting this epic clash. Edge of your seat stuff here. 4 points. Ticking clocks. Hanaway gets one at the train station as Jane struggles to get a name. A big one, of course, is the countdown to the Burj Khalifa meeting,
The countdown is not helping.
which is then sped up by Moreau arriving early and Wistrom with somebody who can verify the launch codes. Then the next big one is getting control of this special satellite before Cobalt does, but hey, they miss the countdown. Then they miss the countdown to the launch. And finally, Ethan barely meets the deadline to abort the actual warhead with not even a second to spare. Great stuff. Plus 3 points. Interpersonal conflicts. There's a bit of strife in Benji being a bit of a novice in the field, and of course him butting heads with Ethan at the prison. There's a bit more meat to Jane's desire for vengeance, which puts her at odds with the mission goals, and Brant in particular. Then there's Brant butting heads with Ethan over judgment calls, followed by Ethan not trusting Brant since he's hiding something, which is handed off to Benji and Jane to dig into. Gotta give 3 points. Story. Narrative. Stolen nuclear launch codes requires an IMF team to break out disavowed Ethan Hunt from a Moscow prison. Their first operation together, much like in the first movie, gets sabotaged, but this time so badly that the entirety of IMF is disavowed. The team must continue with Chief Analyst Brant and limited rundown equipment to stop a plot already in motion for nuclear extinction. And during all this, there's questions about why exactly Ethan was imprisoned and what happened to Julia. 3 points. Character progression. Ethan most fully exemplifies being a team leader by holding this group together and pushing them to be their best. Benji steps up at the end. Grant is able to forgive himself and recommit to the IMF. It's good stuff. 2 and 3 experiment with Ethan a bit, but Ghost Protocol nails him down exactly. 3 points. Romance. We sadly see the end of Hannaway and Jane's romance, and we hear different accounts of how Ethan and Julia fell apart. I would give this a low ranking, but Julia's appearance and impact at the end raises it up 2 points. Twists and turns. Hendrix plays the team so hard in Moscow. Then he outruns Tom, which is a big deal. And then he takes control of the satellite despite the team's commendable efforts. And finally has Wistrom sever ground connection to the satellite in order to prevent them from aborting the warhead. The man raises stakes. There's smaller scale twists, like we think Ethan is going to have to fight his way out from the secretary, but then the secretary turns it on its head and gives him a new mission, which is then repeated with the Fog becoming an ally under similar coded language. And by the way, I've got to mention, that is basically the same pickup from the first movie. Instead of Ethan going to Max, now he's going to the Fog. Same arms dealer, right? And just like Max becomes a asset to Kittredge at the end of one, the Fog becomes an asset to Ethan. It's worth noting. Plus 3 points. Resolution. Crisis averted. Ethan reunites with the team and reestablishes the IMF. And Luther makes an appearance here, which is nice. And by the way, it happens to be drinking beers, which, what did they do at the end of one after everything? Ethan makes peace with Brant by divulging the real story of what happened to Julia. See, Brant was not responsible for her death. She survived. Ethan saved her, but faked her death afterwards and kept his distance to protect her. This, of course, is followed up by us getting to see Julia through Ethan's eyes. And with just their looks, we get so much bittersweet emotion in history. Gotta add an extra point to it. 4 points. Mythos. The legend of Ethan Hunt. Ethan is recognized as a legend by Jane. Benji perhaps has too much confidence in him. Dude is friends with the secretary. We get him disguised deep cover as a Russian agent again. His lip reading skills return from 3, as well as his great endurance for running. And then there's his sheer willpower, which makes him out to be an agent of destiny. Plus 3 points. Spy gear. We start with this tiny capsule exploding into a big airbag. Good guys use trank guns this time, and a trank ring. There's masks, of course. There's the clicker, and that false view sheet in the hallway, super cool. Pin pad cracker, switchable clothing, this awesome jet complete with the car combo from a friend, plus the magnetic suit and rover. But there's also a motif of the gear failing, which starts with the first mission brief hiccuping in its self-destruct sequence. That's followed by the clothing linking Ethan to the bombing, his gloves giving out, and laser cutter spazzing. Even the rope comes up short.
Your line's not long enough! No shit!
Benji's mask poop out, which of course raises the stakes for the meetings. The spy lens gives Brant away. Even the radio cuts out. Plus 4 points. Locations. Budapest actually starts at a train station where the first movie ends with the train station. Then we move on to Moscow, first at a prison and then to the Kremlin.
I thought you said the Kremlin. I thought you said the Kremlin. Okay.
We visit the tallest building in the world in Dubai. And in Mumbai, there's a palace and this awesome car dealership. We see the nuke almost turn San Francisco into Sodom. Could have been an additional point there. And then it ends in Seattle. So plus 3 points. Disavowed. As previously mentioned, Ethan begins disavowed, and it's later revealed to be a cover. But the entire IMF gets disavowed. Plus 3.5 points. Fake outs. I'll mention again with the secretary, it's built up like Ethan is going to have to fight his way out to go rogue, but the secretary is a step ahead and knows Ethan in the field is the best bet. Same with the Fog. His call to Anatoly might confuse some, but it seems a bit obvious that it's Ethan asked him to do this. Pretty similar to Ethan leaving breadcrumbs for Kittredge in the first movie. There's also the Kremlin job where Cobalt beat them to the punch and frames the team for the bombing. Also, the movie ends with a tease for the next movie's villain, The Syndicate, which by the way, that group is from the original show, so plus an additional point, and that puts us up to a total of 79 points. So sorry, Mission 1. While I kind of prefer you, you just don't stack up as the best Mission Impossible movie compared to Ghost Protocol. And for the bonus, I will give an additional 3 points for bringing in Christopher McQuarrie, because he has been steering the franchise with Tom Cruise ever since, and he's fantastic. So that puts us at 82 points. How does the movie stack up for you? What do you think how I did it? I'm the real deal. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.